Hello, and welcome to the third video session of our 5-part video series. My name is Dr. Jim Henry.
And I'm Dr. Tara Zaug. We both conduct tinnitus research at the VA National Center for Rehabilitative Auditory Research located at the Portland, Oregon VA Medical Center.
The first video session showed you how to fill out a sound plan worksheet. With the worksheet filled out, you have now tried out a sound plan to manage your most bothersome tinnitus situation over the last week or two. We are now following up on that first video session to help you to come up with new and better ways to manage your reactions to tinnitus.
Before we get started, you'll need to gather up a few materials. You'll need the sound plan worksheet that you filled out when you watched the first video. You'll need a clean sound plan worksheet, and you'll also need your workbook. Also, be sure to keep your remote control handy so you can pause the video when we ask you to. During the first video session, we talked about the goals of all methods of tinnitus management. Here they are. Emotional reactions are reduced, stress is reduced, little if any attention is given to tinnitus, tinnitus doesn't affect any life activities in a major way, and you feel like further help isn't needed or wanted. Something else to keep in mind is that these goals can be reached even if the sound of your tinnitus doesn't change. There are 5 parts to this video session. We'll start out by reviewing important points from the first video session. Then we'll talk about ideas for choosing devices. Next, we'll give you some help updating your sound plan. Then we're going to make a comparison of the different sound-based methods of tinnitus management. And finally, we'll talk about some other things you can do to manage your tinnitus. So let's start out by reviewing important points from the first video session. We'll begin by reviewing the sound plan worksheet. On number 1 on the worksheet, you wrote down your most bothersome tinnitus situation. Remember that you used the tinnitus problem checklist to identify your most bothersome tinnitus situation. You wrote this down on number 1 on the worksheet. Now let's review number 2 on the worksheet. This is where you chose which of the 3 types of sound you are going to use to try to manage your most bothersome tinnitus situation.
We talked about soothing sound. Soothing sound is sound that makes you feel better as soon as you hear it. It makes you feel better because your tinnitus doesn't bother you as much. How can it help? It helps by giving you a sense of relief from tension and stress caused by your tinnitus. When can it help? It can help you anytime your tinnitus bothers you. We showed you the relief scale for soothing sound. The relief scale is used to listen to sounds to see how well they work to give you a sense of relief. Then we talked about background sound. Background sound is any sound that is neutral. It is not soothing and it's not interesting. How can it help? It reduces contrast to make it easier to ignore your tinnitus. We explained this in the first video session with the candle analogy, and we'll do a quick review of that. When can it help? It can help you anytime, 24 hours a day, even when you're sleeping. We talked about the candle in the dark room. When you turn on the lights, the candle attracts less attention. The candle has not changed at all between these 2 pictures. The only difference is the background. You change the background and you don't notice the candle as much. The same thing works with tinnitus. On the left, we have tinnitus in a quiet background. It really stands out. Now on the right, we have the same tinnitus with background sound. And you can see that the tinnitus doesn't stand out as much. Tinnitus is less likely to get your attention when you add background sound. You might not notice background sound helping you right away, but that doesn't mean it's not helping you. Using constant background sound over weeks or months can help you get better at ignoring your tinnitus over time. And remember never to use sound that is irritating or annoying to manage your tinnitus. Then we talked about interesting sound, the third of the 3 types of sound. Interesting sound is sound that keeps your attention. It's sound that involves active listening. It can help by shifting your attention away from your tinnitus so you're not thinking about your tinnitus as much. When can it help? Not any time like the other sounds, but it can help when you do not need to concentrate on something else. If you need to concentrate on something else, interesting sound is not what you want for that particular situation. For example, it can help when you want to relax or sleep. During the last video session, we had you listen to a short story. We chose that story because most people find it very interesting. It showed how your attention can be shifted away from your tinnitus and on to some other sound. You marked on your attention scale how much of your attention was focused on the story. You can use this scale over and over to do the same thing with any other sound. In summary, there are 3 types of sound for managing tinnitus. Soothing sound helps reduce stress or tension that is caused by tinnitus. Background sound reduces contrast between tinnitus and a quiet environment to make it easier to ignore the tinnitus. Interesting sound helps to shift your attention away from your tinnitus.
On number 3 of the worksheet, you wrote down the sounds that you're going to use. To help you come up with ideas for choosing sounds, we showed you the Tinnitus Management Sound Grid. For each type of sound, you can use environmental sound, music, or speech. If you choose soothing sound on your sound plan worksheet, when you get to number 3, you could write down any environmental sound, music, or speech that's soothing to you. As a reminder, we wouldn't want you to write the word environmental sound, music, or speech. We'd want you to write in a specific example. You could write in a certain kind of music that's soothing to you, like Mozart. If you choose background sound on your sound plan worksheet, when you get to number 3, you could write in any environmental sound, music, or speech that's not interesting to you and not soothing to you. So maybe you would write in fan noise. That would be an environmental sound that you would be using as background sound. If you choose interesting sound, you could write in any environmental sound, music, or speech that's interesting to you. So maybe you'd write in having a telephone conversation with a friend. That would be using speech as interesting sound to help you get your mind off of your tinnitus. Here's the grid one more time. There are 3 types of sound: soothing, background, and interesting, along with environmental sound, music, and speech. You can use any of these 9 combinations to manage your tinnitus. We've just finished part 1 of this video session. Now let's move on to part 2, ideas for choosing devices. Remember that on number 4 of the worksheet, you write down the devices that you'll use. We've got a few new ideas for devices. There are 2 categories of devices: wearable listening devices and tabletop devices. Wearable listening devices are small, portable devices that you can wear. Tabletop devices are larger devices that usually would be stationary. We have some examples of wearable listening devices here. This is an MP3 player. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. This is a portable CD player and a tiny radio. And here's something a little different. It's an eye mask for sleeping that has sounds built in. The eye mask can also be connected to a radio or anything with a standard headphone jack.
Let's talk about MP3 players. They're very popular. Lots of people use them. You see people wearing them on the bus and around town. MP3 players in general are very flexible devices, and they normally use earbuds. Earbuds are little buds that fit in your ears. They're much smaller than standard earphones. The nice thing about an MP3 player is you can download any sound from a CD or from a podcast. What's a podcast? If you're ever on the internet, you can search for the word podcast, and you'll find that there are thousands and thousands of different programs available that you can listen to. These may be radio shows, they may be radio dramas or lectures. There are just lots and lots of things available that you can get on the internet, and try them all out. If you like what you hear, you can load it up on your MP3 player and listen to it anytime you want. And you can keep changing what you listen to. Bluetooth is short-range radio technology. It connects things wirelessly up to about 10 or 20 feet. What this shows is that this person has a special device fit on his ear. You've probably seen people walking around talking on their cell phones with a Bluetooth device like this. But they can also be used to connect wirelessly to your MP3 player. You can listen to whatever is on your MP3 player through your Bluetooth device. And Bluetooth can be used with some hearing aids. This allows you to listen to an MP3 player or your cell phone through your hearing aid. So this is something you might want to ask your audiologist about. There's lots of great new technology available to help you manage your tinnitus. Satellite radio has a huge number of listening choices. They may have about 160 or so channels, and they work just about anywhere in the world. No matter where you are, you're actually connecting to a satellite signal, and that satellite signal contains all of these different channels that you can listen to. It opens up a whole new world of listening options.
We just talked about using Bluetooth to connect a hearing aid wirelessly. But there's another option. A lot of hearing aids have something called a T-coil. It's also sometimes called a telephone program. A T-coil is a tiny coil of wire in a hearing aid that can pick up electromagnetic signals. In this photo, you can see a satellite radio, but instead of headphones, there's a neck loop plugged into it. The neck loop sends a wireless signal up to the hearing aid. You can plug a neck loop into anything with a standard headphone jack, including cell phones, radios, and MP3 players. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about tabletop devices. We have a few examples here. This is a tabletop water fountain that could provide some nice background sound, or maybe it would even be soothing sound for some people. We also have a couple of tabletop sound generators. These are small devices that will put out a variety of sounds. This device has several buttons. Each button gives you a different sound. This device is made for people with tinnitus, and it has a tone control so you can adjust the bass and the treble. This device is a docking station for an MP3 player. Tabletop devices can also be something more common, like a fan. So far, we've talked about using only sound for managing tinnitus. Listening and watching together can sometimes be more helpful. So here's a character. Let's call him Joe. Joe is totally engrossed in watching a football game. He has very loud tinnitus, but he's not even aware of it because he's 100% focused on the football game. Some other ideas for using both sight and sound are going out to a movie, watching a DVD or a TV show, or going to a play, a concert, or a comedy club. It's a good idea for the content to be meaningful and interesting to do a better job of keeping your attention. There are also some special DVDs that are designed to show peaceful scenes with relaxing music in the background. This is a way to make soothing sound both visual and auditory. We're going to talk about a few ideas for using sound at night, as many people report they notice their tinnitus more at night when it's quiet and their mind is not active. This is an interesting option. It's called a sound pillow. It's a pillow that has a couple of thin speakers in it and a cord that can plug into anything with a standard headphone jack, like a CD player, an MP3 player, a radio, or a TV. The sound from the device comes out of the speakers in the pillow. One nice thing about using a sound pillow is that the sound coming out of it is less likely to be heard by another person in the room. Sometimes people will say, I found a sound that's pretty helpful for me, but my husband or my wife really doesn't like to have sound in the bedroom. Using a sound pillow will help ensure that only you hear the sound without others being disturbed. One disadvantage of using a sound pillow is that the sound is usually only heard in one ear. This is another interesting option for using sound at night. It's a fleece headband with embedded speakers. This is something that was originally made for skiers, but it can be used comfortably in bed. This is another device that you can plug into anything with a standard headphone jack. It's less likely to be heard by another person in the room, and you'll hear sound in both ears. This is a neck pillow. People sometimes use them to keep their head in place while sleeping on an airplane. This photo shows an unusual use of a neck pillow. We got the idea from a veteran who had tinnitus who wanted to wear standard earphones at night. He arranges the pillow so that when he lays his head on it, there's no pressure on the earphones.
We're now up to part 3. We're going to update your sound plan. During the last video session, you made a sound plan and then used that sound plan over the last week or two. The question is, how well did your sound plan work for you? If it didn't work well, you should update the worksheet. Remember, learning to manage tinnitus is a process. You don't learn how to do it overnight. You don't even learn how to do it in a week or two. You learn how to do it by filling out the sound plan worksheet and then doing your sound plan for a while, trying it, seeing how it works, and trying new things. So you're going to need your worksheet from the last session. You also may need to have a blank worksheet in front of you. You can revise the worksheet you have been using, or you can use the blank worksheet to write a new sound plan. Go ahead and pause the video, and once you have gathered the materials you'll need, restart the video. Let's start by reviewing item number 5 from your completed worksheet. We're going to stop the video in a moment and have you look at number 5 on the worksheet. Number 5 asks, how helpful was each sound after using it for 1 week? Look to see if any of the 3 types of sound, soothing sound, background sound, interesting sound, was especially helpful for you. Are you seeing any patterns as to what's working and what's not working? If you do, make sure and write them down in the comments section, which is number 6. So go ahead and pause the video and think about all of this. Write some comments on your worksheet and then turn the video back on. We're going to look again at number 5 on the worksheet. Are you seeing any patterns with respect to number 3 on the worksheet? Was environmental sound especially helpful for you over the last 2 weeks? Was music especially helpful? Was speech especially helpful? In number 3 on the worksheet, you wrote down different sounds that you thought would work best with each of the 3 types of sound. You're always looking for patterns for what works and what doesn't work. If you see any patterns, make sure you write them down in the comments section. So go ahead and pause the video, write some things down, and then turn the video back on. We're looking for patterns so we can figure out what works best for us to manage our tinnitus. It's okay if you didn't notice any patterns for what was most helpful. If you didn't find anything that worked for you this last time, keep trying. You may want to listen to the sound demonstration CD located in the back of your workbook for more sound ideas. This all takes time to figure out what works best for your particular situation.
We now want to update your worksheet to try to get better results. You can go ahead and write on your completed worksheet. Cross out ideas that weren't helpful and add new ideas that you haven't tried yet. You can start a new worksheet if you prefer to do that. While you're updating your worksheet, think about what worked best for you during the last week or 2. Remember that background sound doesn't always feel helpful right away, but it can help over time. Remember, when you're using soothing sound, you're trying to get an immediate sense of relief. You want to feel better just by listening to the sound. If you don't feel better listening to the sound might work just fine for background sound, and the more you have background sound, the less likely you are to be thinking about and reacting to your tinnitus. So now go ahead and pause the video, update your worksheet, and then turn the video back on. The worksheet should not be used just once. It takes trial and error to learn what works best in each situation. So use the worksheet for as long as your tinnitus is a problem, and keep using new worksheets. Cross things out, write new things in, throw the old worksheet away, get out a new worksheet. Just keep using it as a tool to help you learn how to manage your tinnitus using sound. It takes time, patience, and creativity to develop a plan that's most helpful to you.
Now we're going to shift gears and talk about sound-based methods of tinnitus management. We will talk about 4 different methods. We cannot adequately explain these in the short amount of time we have, so this will be just a brief overview. If you understand the grid that we have been using, then you will have a basic understanding of these different methods. The first method is tinnitus masking. This method has been around the longest and involves using usually broadband noise, sounds like shh. Often you use an ear-level device, a little device that fits in your ear that looks like a hearing aid. The idea of tinnitus masking is to give you a sense of relief from your tinnitus. So using sound with tinnitus masking is an example of using environmental sound as soothing sound. That's why we have the one check mark here, environmental sound as soothing sound. The method of tinnitus retraining therapy has been around since about 1990. This method also often uses ear-level devices that put broadband noise in your ears, but they are not used for giving a sense of relief. Most simply, they are used to create background sound that helps you pay less attention to your tinnitus. So tinnitus retraining therapy uses environmental sound as background sound. A fairly new method is neuromonics tinnitus treatment. With neuromonics, you use a device that works kind of like an MP3 player. During stage 1, the device combines music along with broadband noise. During stage 1, you're using a combination of music and environmental sound as soothing sound. Then during stage 2, the noise is removed and you still listen to the music. During stage 2, the music is used as soothing sound, and over time it changes to being used more as background sound. This is far too simple of an explanation for these different methods, so we suggest that you read more about them in the workbook. You should learn all you can about these different methods before trying any of them. The method that we're using in these 2 video sessions is called Progressive Tinnitus Management, or PTM. What's unique about PTM is that you can use sound in any of these 9 combinations to manage your tinnitus. None of these sound-based options, tinnitus masking, tinnitus retraining therapy, neuromonics tinnitus treatment, or progressive tinnitus management, will cure your tinnitus. The goal of all of these tinnitus management options is to help you manage your reactions to tinnitus by paying less attention to it and reducing stress caused by tinnitus. That finishes up this section, and now we will wrap things up.
So far, we have only talked about using sound to manage tinnitus. There are other helpful ways to manage your tinnitus, such as the skills that are taught on the other sessions of this video series. These can be done in addition to using sound to manage tinnitus. Another important piece of managing your tinnitus is avoiding dangerously loud sounds. Very loud sounds can make your tinnitus and your hearing worse. We have a chart here to help you get a feel for when loud sounds become dangerously loud. The basic idea here is that the louder a sound is, the faster it can damage your hearing. You can see at the bottom of the chart we have traffic noise. You're at risk for hearing damage after about 8 straight hours of traffic noise. Next on the chart, we have a gas-powered lawnmower. A lawnmower is louder than traffic noise, which means that you're at risk of hearing damage after only about 2 hours of exposure. Chainsaws are very loud. Using a chainsaw for only 2 minutes without hearing protection can damage your hearing. And firing a gun is so loud that it can damage your hearing in less than 1 second. If you need to be around dangerously loud sounds, it's important to wear hearing protection. We have several examples of hearing protection here to show you. This is a photo of a variety of foam earplugs. Foam earplugs are very good if they're used correctly. Unfortunately, most people don't use them correctly. The photo on the left shows properly inserted earplugs, and you can see that the earplug is completely inserted into the ear canal. On the right is a photo of improperly inserted earplugs. In the photo on the right, quite a lot of the earplug is hanging out of the ear canal. When this happens, the earplugs don't work very well. So if you use foam earplugs, be sure to get them all the way into the ear canal. Next, we have a photo of custom earplugs. An audiologist can make these for you. They put some soft material in your ears to make an impression, send it into a laboratory, and the laboratory sends them back. They're a lot more expensive than foam earplugs, but they're usually easier to insert and more comfortable, and one pair will last for years. This is a photo of hi-fi earplugs. They're also sometimes called musicians' earplugs. They're basically custom earplugs with a little filter. The filter keeps sounds coming through them more natural. Most earplugs muffle and distort sound. Hi-fi earplugs make sound quieter, but with less distortion. So they can keep sounds crisp and protect your ears at the same time. Next, we have a photo of electronic earplugs. These earplugs are usually used by hunters. They allow you to hear normally until there's a very loud sound, like gunfire, and as soon as the earplugs detect noise, they kick in and quiet things down to protect your ears. And finally, we have a photo of earmuffs. If you use earmuffs, be sure they fit firmly around your ears. If you wear a hood under the earmuffs, or if you wear glasses with bows that go under the earmuffs won't work as well. It's of course a good idea to take care of yourself and be healthy for all kinds of reasons. People sometimes say that things like smoking, alcohol, and salt cause their tinnitus to get worse. If you'd like, you can try minimizing any of these things to see if it makes a difference for you. It's always important to get enough sleep and to keep your stress level low. Keeping your mind and body busy with meaningful activities can also help. The busier you are with activities you enjoy, the less you tend to notice your tinnitus. And finally, learn all you can about tinnitus. The more you learn, the more empowered you are. One option is to join the American Tinnitus Association. They have a journal that comes out every 3 months that's full of good information about tinnitus. It always has lots of helpful hints. Read good books, articles, and websites about tinnitus, but be very careful about what you read, especially on the internet, because there's a lot of information out there that's not helpful. If you're interested in reading about tinnitus online, start by looking in the workbook. There's a list there of websites with good information about tinnitus. What's next? Keep using the sound plan worksheets and revise them as needed.
Well, congratulations. You've completed the third of 5 video presentations titled Managing Your Tinnitus, What to Do and How to Do It. If you have bothersome tinnitus, it is most helpful to watch all 5 of the videos, starting with session 1 and ending with session 5. Dr. Zaug and I have shown you how to use the sound plan worksheet to make a sound plan to manage your tinnitus. We talked about how to protect your ears and about other things you can do to manage your tinnitus. If you watched session 2, you learned about coping techniques. You will learn more about coping techniques in sessions 4 and 5.
We hope this video is helpful, but if you need help, contact an audiologist. Thank you for joining us, and we wish you the best.